So the current case that you're working on about Ahmaud Arbery, can you tell us more about it?
Yeah, so Ahmaud Arbery on February 23rd, Sunday, 1 p.m., he went for a jog, as Ahmaud often does. Ahmaud was a 25-year-old high school standout athlete who lived in southern Georgia with his family, two older siblings, an older brother and an older sister, and his mother. They were all away from the house. He went for a jog, and what they know is that he was shot 3 times by 3 white men. One white man in particular, the trigger man, Travis Gregory, shot him with a shotgun, while the other 2 sort of surrounded him. The story that they told is that they saw this young black man running through their neighborhood, and they suspected that he may be responsible for some crimes that they believe may have occurred in their neighborhood. I say believe may have occurred because there's no police record of reports of crimes in that neighborhood in recent times. But they alleged that this was a suspect that they were looking for. They did call law enforcement, but before law enforcement arrived, they took matters into their own hand. They hopped into their pickup trucks, 2 different pickup trucks. They cornered this young man, blocking off either end of the road. And when he refused to stop or talk to them and tried to run away from them, they got out of their car with the guns, and he was inevitably shot 3 times.
Now, in my readings on the internet, I noticed that there was a story being passed around that a video has surfaced from a neighbor. Is there any truth to that, or no?
I believe the video was taken by one of the suspects, Billy Williams. So people have been talking about, but there was a 3rd person there, Billy Williams, according to the district attorney. And Mr. Williams was the person who recorded the video. That video was shared with the DA, but was not released publicly by law enforcement or by the neighbor who's obviously friendly to the shooter. What I know from my experience in these cases is that if that video was exculpatory, if it showed them doing something they had every right to do, and it showed that young man randomly attacking them, we would have seen it by now.
Understood. So just to switch gears, you've been quoted as saying that you want to change the culture of policing. How would that look to you?
It depends on where, right? Right now, let's talk about what the culture of policing is. America has the deadliest police culture in the modern world. There is no industrialized nation that kills more of its citizens, period. American police kill on average 3 people a day. Most nations can go through an entire year without killing anyone. But even sizable nations, like let's say Japan, at best, or Germany, because Japan is a really poor example because they don't actually kill their citizens. Germany only kill maybe a dozen, and they're comparable in our population. We kill 1,200,000 people, citizens, a year, and the body count continues to rise. It's a culture based on a pseudo war, so-called war on drugs that started during the Reagan/Nixon era, that was continued on through the Clinton era, and continues on through the Obama and Trump administration. And enter black and brown communities across the country, and terrorize the citizens, kidnapping and maiming mothers, children, women alike. So if that's the culture that we're dealing with, I think that we can have a culture where communities police themselves. 90% of policing actually has very little to do with the necessity of some sort of outside state agency. As a private person, as an individual, as a father, as a friend, as a Q, I couldn't imagine a situation where I would call a white man with a gun to help, right? A stranger, to like, come help me. It's not logical. It's not sustainable. The murder of Tatiana Jefferson and both from John in their own home, and countless other people who have called the police for help, and instead got bullets shows us that policing is not for us. I don't think police culture is redeemable. All right, the pizza man. I should probably get that.
Go ahead, fatherhood. I understand.
I don't think policing itself is redeemable in the sense that it was the American policing culture comes out of the slave catchers. That's not just a hotep trope. You know,
Right.
It's not just something that Black Power people say.
Yeah.
It in fact is the history of policing, that their job was to catch fugitive slaves. Sir, give me just a second, okay? Thank you. And that culture has not changed a great deal in the past 400 years or so. I no longer accept that the state has to send people into my home in order to maintain the peace. I can do it myself. I call it cues. So
Definitely be there. Amen. And we'll definitely be there. Speaking of the cues, so in your journey to becoming who you are, is there any notable Omega man that has made an influence on you?
I'm sorry, it will be Benjamin Elijah Mays. There you go, sir. Thank you. Yeah, it would be. Son, grab the soda for me. It would be Benjamin Elijah Mays, who wrote a book called Born to Rebel. He was an elite educator who was the father of Morehouse College. Morehouse College is near and dear to my heart. Morehouse College was my first introduction to the other side of the tracks. I'm from South Central LA. I don't have family members who immediate family or college in any other family, and so it was the first time that I was able to get around men who endeavored to change the world, who believed in them, believed in themselves beyond societal limitations. And so, yeah, it was an eye-opening situation, and Benjamin Elijah Mays was the architect of that, and it's the reason that Morehouse College is the factory of leadership that it is today.
Makes sense. Now, I noticed that we talk about leadership and education. I feel that there are times when we are missing that in the community, and that is a big issue. But what do you feel are currently the largest issues facing the African American community?
Mass incarceration. So the system of mass incarceration is what I center my career around. Is actually, I believe it to be the pivotal civil. So, obviously, African Americans came to this country in chains. We went through a period of nadir, the worst form of slavery in world history, where we were chattel, where we were property, and that system ended at some point. And there was a Reconstruction era. It's important for me to go through the history why I think it's the most pivotal issue of our time. We go through a brief period of Reconstruction before a white supremacist element in our country rises up and says, it's okay we will accept reluctantly that African Americans will be free, but they cannot be equal. And they instituted a group of laws that we formerly called Jim Crow. The Jim Crow system existed to subjugate African Americans, to hold them in place, and so that America will remain white and largely based on white culture, white wealth, and white values. That continued until really the 1970s, when there was a movement that said those laws that exist, those Jim Crow era laws, must be repealed. And so in a lot of places, the signs went down, and in particular, but the culture never changed, right? So it doesn't say black only or white only, but we know, for example, if you hear that a man was holding a gun in the middle of the street, he was surrounded by cops, and he was pointing it at them, and he was saying, "Kill me, kill me, kill me." And they decided not to shoot, and they successfully disarmed him. We know that's white-only justice. We already know automatically that that was not a black person, right?
Yeah, immediately. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, immediately comes to mind. Yeah.
And so there's no justice still remains largely segregated in this country. When we ended formally the period of Jim Crow, the power structure needed to find a way to continue to subjugate black people and other people, undesirables that didn't fit the conservative values that were America. And so they couched it in this term of law and order, and they decided to start a war on drugs, which it was always and remains a war on black and brown communities. It was an opportunity to say, all right, now these newly liberated people under the law will have to face a new set of laws. And we only enforce drug laws on black communities. We unleashed the courts on our communities. We took a population of 100,000 people in jail, mostly white, because our nation is mostly white, in the 1970s, and turned it into 2.2 million people in chains, mostly black and brown. It was a smooth transition to a new form of social control based on race. That system exists. It is not legitimate. Our courtrooms are not legitimate. I'm an attorney who argues the Constitution in our courtrooms, but our courtrooms, I want to be clear, are not places that we can go for justice. That is a whites-only justice institution, and those institutions don't need to be reformed. They need to be dismantled and destroyed and built again.
Okay. Now that you said a great deal there, and I kind of want to press on that. You say that it shouldn't be reformed; it should be dismantled.
Dismantled, because reform or repair gives you the suggestion that it's broken, right? Our courtrooms are broken. Our judicial system is broken. But anyone who is paying attention to, again, if we look at the 1970s when Jim Crow ended and we had a population it didn't triple, it did multiply by a factor of 10 to 2.2 million people. That wasn't by mistake. There's no happenstance that allowed that to happen. That was a design. It is working perfectly. And so if a machine is working perfectly to subjugate our communities, to incarcerate our men, women, and children, if it's working well, then we don't need to reform it or fix it. We need to destroy it.
Yeah. Understood. So in this, now this is going to be my transition. Then in this upcoming election cycle, at all levels, what advice would you give to the people?
Same thing that Diddy gave them, that you have to change, you have to exchange your vote for something. Each of these candidates represent one side of the same coin, which is the subjugation of black people in this country. Either they say it nicely or they say it racist terms, but it's the same thing. They each offer more incarceration, more control, more and less rights to our people, and they've done it to a man. And so neither of them deserve our loyalty. Trump has been particularly abusive towards our system. So I have and specifically with regard to our courts, he has given a super shot to our courts and infused it with super racists who don't care at all about the law. Many of them have never even practiced the law. Now they're federal judges determining laws in our country in ways that we won't be able to undo for decades. So he is problematic. Yes, I have a desire to get rid of him, but I'm not going to trade one form of cancer for another. And so we need a commitment from the Democratic Party, specifically from Joe Biden, that they want to give us something other than cancer. In this government that's not for us in the first place.
Understood. Okay, so
brother, I'm sorry.
We're going to be back.
Without that, I got to jump.
Yes, sir. I understand. I appreciate you giving me your time. I'll definitely contact you about the charity. You have a blessing.
Thank you. Bless.